And the verdict is out. The boss fight in episode 12 of season 2 of Solo Leveling was indeed pure cinema. Now, yes, I have my fair share of potential issues or problems with this episode, and I'm just gonna start by saying I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to, or expecting to, but yes, of course, I will definitely give many props to the animation quality and overall quality of the fight in this episode. And just to jump right in and start off here, yes, of course, as we knew at the end of the last episode, Sung has now arrived. Finally, you might say, at least. That's what I was gonna say. Now, my biggest contention with the last episode was why exactly did Sung wait so long before he arrived? And I made many theories on the subject because we have still very little information about what he can get from his shadows or not get from his shadows information-wise. But after a few comments this episode, and more context this episode, yes, it seems that my main theory was correct, that Goto was just KIA'd extremely quickly, in 1 second flat, and that's when his shadow was destroyed as well, which led Sung to not sensing the shadow anymore that he had in Goto, which then seemingly prompted him to directly join the fight. And that is the reason why he took so long, because he didn't have any other information to go off of until that point. Now, I did also make the note last episode of why didn't Sung just watch the TV broadcast and go off of that. That, of course, was me not remembering or realizing that, right, at that time, the broadcast was on a 10-minute delay, so he wouldn't have seen it in time regardless, at least most likely. So in the end, okay, my main theory was proven correct. So I suppose I'm happy enough with that explanation, at least for now. I have to say though, before moving on, I am definitely disappointed with us not getting any more Goto, let's say, fan service or content. With how much Goto was really gassed up to be, basically the strongest S rank in the Asia region, behind Sung of course, that he was just KO'd in one single hit felt a bit cheap to me still, and again, I just really would have liked just even 10 seconds of them showing Goto trying to fight back, even just for a tiny bit. But no, I guess they either wanted to save an animation budget, they didn't feel it was important, or they wanted to save all the ants' moves to the actual boss fight with Sung. It is what it is, but a bit of a lost opportunity there, I have to say. But yes, Sung does arrive finally, and of course, everyone is surprised, like how in the world did he get here? And in normal Sung fashion, he just says, I'll explain it later, okay, I have more important things to do, I have some aura farming to do right now, I have some boss fights to take care of, so I'll explain this all later. Trust me, bro. At least that's the vibe I got off of him. Now, I did also find it interesting that shortly after he arrives, while he is trying to take care of all these ants that keep charging on before, of course, the boss arrives somewhat later, Sung still seems to restrain himself, commenting to himself that he doesn't really want to showcase his full power to everyone else. But in this case, he does realize that, okay, I can't worry about that now, I have more important things to do. Which is, of course, the same decision he came to in the fight with Tusk back in episode 5 or 6. But it is somewhat interesting that they still keep sort of putting that thought to the forefront here that yes, Sung continually just is very wary about his power level being on full display and how much he doesn't really like showcasing what he can really do to others. Of course, as was inevitable, with a cameraman there and the camera inevitably starting to work again as the boss fight starts, Sung's popularity and knowledge about his power level, yeah, the cat's out of the bag, dude, but nice try. And that brings us, of course, into the TV broadcast. As I mentioned before, yes, there was a 10-minute delay, but we do find out in this episode, okay, so the TV broadcast was cut short. Like, they cut the public broadcast right when the ant boss arrived. Because, of course, they had a 10-minute buffer, and they cut it before the public got to see everyone being, well, slapped around like weaklings. But of course, the Hunter Association and those behind the scenes were able to see everything up to a certain point. They don't specifically explain when exactly the broadcast cuts out. It seems to be perhaps right before Sung arrives or when Sung arrives, which begs the question, did Sung's ability usage somehow block the signal, or did Sung somehow, intentionally or not, block the signal to the TV station and therefore cut the feed completely? It's a bit unclear at this time, but as we see later in the episode, when his sister is banging on the TV, saying that, not only is the signal lost, but the TV is dead, if Sung was perhaps sitting on the rooftop of his building, then that does lead further credence to, okay, maybe Sung here and the ability he uses, or maybe just Sung's, I don't know, aura or something, ends up interfering with technology in some way or form. Quite unclear at this point, but will be interesting to learn more about that later. Now, of course, as the broadcast was cut short, both publicly and behind locked doors, everyone is kind of freaking out. And as the TV, person says, the director or whatnot you want to call them, the public is demanding that they keep broadcasting. Because of course the public have a very big vested interest in what's going on here, And they don't just want to see the feed cut short and suddenly not know what the hell is going on. Because that doesn't bode well for, the public in general. So the TV center, the broadcasting center there, are trying everything they can to get the feed back. Both for the public, because, they're being inundated with calls and whatever else, and of course also for everyone in the back, including Go and everyone else that is watching this and needs to have information on what the hell is going on back there. Because it seems that it was cut, the entire signal, right when things really started going to hell. That did also pop a thought into my head when I was watching this, A-rank camera guy in the dungeon there, or in the lair. He's like hitting the box, like, come on, work, get the signal back. I'm just imagining him thinking, like, come on, dude, the MC's here. The main character is here, dude. He's starting to aura farm. I gotta get the camera back on. We got a boss fight. Come on, let's get it working. Inevitably, yes, of course, as I mentioned, it does start working. Just in time. But I can just imagine just how desperate he was to start having that work. He probably wanted a nice bag of popcorn too, but, you can't have everything. You gotta enjoy the boss fight with what you have. In the end, though, I am interested to know in the future more about maybe if Sung, intentionally or not, did, at least for a time, disrupt the TV signals, and him doing so for the express purpose of limiting the knowledge of his power level. If so, I would like to explore that further. For the actual boss fight, though, which of course is the main draw of this episode, Sung does take care of all the wounds of the rest of the Korean S-ranks. With his, nice healing potions, he heals everyone, except when it gets to Cha, because Cha is simply too badly hurt. And oh boy, does she not look good in this episode, basically being on death's door the entire time, which does also put Sung on the clock to get her out of here ASAP, which inevitably has some impact on how quick and hard he goes in the boss fight, not wasting any time. Now, I will get more into Cha and her condition and what Sung does closer to the end of this episode, but yes, it's very fair to say that Cha is not looking good, and it seems that probably one of the main focuses of the last episode of Season 2 next week will be about saving Cha one way or another. That's foreshadowing, by the way, for later. Before we continue, if you are enjoying the video, please remember to like and subscribe, as that greatly helps out my channel, so thank you for any support you choose to give. Now, next here, I have to just quickly mention, okay, Chairman Go is just, I love this man so much. Chairman Go is like an absolute Giga Chad, but with such a huge heart, and he's just, I love him to death, alright? I love Go, he is great. And I do really like the few scenes he has this episode, and I really like how they add to his character and strengthen his character, and just how much of a good guy it makes Go seem to be. The first scene we get with him, when the broadcast and everything is still down, and they're struggling to get any information they can on what the hell is going on over there, you have Chairman Go just, sitting in his chair, sort of sulking almost, or gripping his chest, and really just feeling him that, oof, this is really impacting him, right? How he also then says, yeah, I mean, it really hurts me how I'm so old now, how I'm so frail now that I can't be on the front lines. I can't be there to help them. I can't be there to impact anything, to just stand with them and fight with them. Even if it would have been useless, he says, just being able to be there is something he just deeply wanted to have the ability to do, but because of his old age and the status of his body, he simply can't. And you can just feel the sort of regret and pain he has that if things go to shit here, like if the S ranks die here and the mission fails, well, at least partly fails, the amount of regret and responsibility and just pain he will feel will be just immense. And you can really just feel with Go in this moment how much he just wants to even just have the ability to be there in the first place, even if it wouldn't have really been that useful. The next scene we get with Go this episode, though, that was just absolutely hilarious, and I loved it. When we get the feedback from the cameraman, and of course everyone, including Go, sees Sung is there, Go just gets so goddamn excited, and he grips his chair so harshly that it breaks almost. And you just see his expression is like, yes, Sung made it, let's go! And he's just so happily excited and just absolutely, I would almost say glowing, that Sung actually made it there and that they now have a chance. And even when Wu or whatnot says, how did he get there? Go is just like, whatever, it doesn't matter, he's there, okay? He can do this. Every time, man, Go is just such a great character. I love him to death. I really hope we get to see more scenes with him because, yeah, he's a stoic old man, but he has a lot of heart and a lot of spirit, and he just seems like such a really good guy. I hope we get to see way more of him, in the future of the series, because inevitably, solo leveling is not going to be shelved anytime soon with these viewing numbers, in-world and out. That, though, brings us to the Japanese chairman. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he is the chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, right? At least that's the impression I was given till this point. Now, he is being informed that, yeah, we have 7 KIAs, including Goto. And this is the scene where we actually get to realize that, yes, Goto is dead. Of course, the chairman is, well, furious. 7 KIAs. Unacceptable. Including Goto, of course, which is a huge blow to the strength of the Japanese hunters. And then, of course, he gives the order to retreat and do as he said last episode, to then regroup with the rest of the Japanese S ranks and then go back in. He does say, though, that, with 7 KIAs, that's like half the S ranks that joined, I suppose, this expedition. So obviously, it's a huge blow to the Japanese Hunters Association as a whole, and their influence and power as a whole, both in Japan and, I suppose, abroad. Once again, of course, the chairman starts pondering and planning and scheming. Yes, how can we still make this into a win for us? And me just imagining Mr. Burns from The Simpsons this entire time while he is scheming here. Ah, yes, we'll just continue with the original plan, get the hunters back on the island, and even if this strong and kill Goto, I'm sure he's weak by now. I'm sure Goto actually hurt him or did something, even though he did nothing. And then as long as you take out the boss ant, we can try to save a few Korean S ranks, which would be great PR for us. And we can still claim we took out the boss ant and saved everyone. That'll still be a good PR victory for us, and we can go from there. It's like, okay, dude, I guess that's a plan. It does also mention, though, that their losses, these 7 KIAs, will impact the next phase. And I'm still not sure if the next phase does mean the next phase of the Jeju Island operation, i.e., getting a PR victory or sort of still having like a big strength boost over the Korean hunters after this whole thing, or if it means the next phase in whatever evil scheme this guy has further down the line. Nonetheless, he isn't the smartest cookie in the jar, I have to say, because I can't imagine that this guy, he clearly must be somewhat powerful and also somewhat smart, as he is the head of the Hunters Association in Japan. But at this time, the broadcast is back up, right? And it's live, so he can literally just turn on the TV and see what is going on in this lair inside, the dungeon here with the boss ant and Sung. He's treating this entire thing like, yeah, we have no idea what's going on in there, but he makes all these assumptions, which then informs what his plan is going to be to have Japan still be on top after this entire raid. But he still doesn't think for a second to be like, maybe I should check into this hugely massive broadcast that is now live without delay to see what is actually going on in the dungeon, which hugely impacts my plan for this specific raid. It's like, dude, even if you can't get that broadcast in Japan or whatever where you are, you have people there that can open their phone and just relay that to you to say what the hell is going on in the dungeon, right? That just seems really stupid to me. And I cannot believe for a second that this guy, who I can only assume is supposed to be someone intelligent, doesn't think for a second to actually check that before he makes these big moves with the rest of the Japanese S ranks he has around the battle area. Anyhow, though, You'll find out next episode, I'm sure, when the S-Ranks find out that Sung killed the boss and probably isn't going to be in the best mood. That's just a big oversight though, and I really don't know why they didn't account for that in the show so far. Unless that conversation between the chairman and the S-Ranks happens before the signal comes back, but in that case, that is not communicated to us at all. But that does indeed bring us to the big focus of this episode, which is of course the boss fight. Oh yes, the big boss fight. The fight we have been waiting, I suppose, all season 4, though specifically the last arc of the season 4, this big bad ant. And I have to say, this is the part of the episode that I really didn't enjoy, sadly, as much as I was hoping to. No, I'm not saying the fight was bad per se. I'm not saying the animation was bad. I'm not saying that everything about the fight was bad, but I was just hoping for more. I was hoping for something different than what we got. Maybe that's just me expecting too much, wanting too much, but considering the insane budget of this show, and I'm sure the amazing writers and everything else they have on board, I just feel like they could have done more with the fight itself. Yes, of course, we get, an insane amount of aura farming. We get to see Sung really, going Super Saiyan, for lack of a better word, and we also get to see this somewhat surprising but enjoyable, let's say, multi-stage fight, where we first get these really powerful blows back and forth between Sung and the ant, literally just punching each other straight up, comparing strength, I suppose, to then comparing speed and comparing other aspects to see who is best. And this, let's say, multi-stage battle, that part I thought was enjoyable, and of course, a lot of the animation was very clean, very intense, and powerful. And of course, yes, as the TV broadcast signal comes back just in time, obviously, for this boss fight, of course, me, along with probably most all of you, love the Power Fantasy catnip when you get to see the expressions of all the friends and family, Jinna and the other, A ranks and whatnot from earlier season 2, and just the other S ranks too in the dungeon, being like, Sung, what are you doing here? And what the heck are you gonna do? And you are crazy OP. Maybe I like that more than most, but to me, that is absolute Power Fantasy catnip, and yes, I am addicted to having those moments in Power Fantasy anime, and I never grow tired of that. So yes, on that front, I was satisfied, especially with the scenes with Jinna, for example. It's like, what, Oni-chan? But you say we're just stepping out for some food or something. How the hell did you get there? And yes, of course, Go's reaction also being in this montage, let's say, of reactions. And while this, let's say, king versus king battle takes place, I also enjoyed, the reactions of, for example, Baek or Choi or everyone else, right? I also really liked, the short scenes, for example, when Sung and the boss later in the fight have this, super speed, when they just paint lines on the screen basically because they're too fast to see. And they have this very quick moment of Baek's eyes literally almost popping out of his skull, like darting around, trying to just even see or even just comprehend what is going on and track these people, even though he has like no ability to because this is just insane, right? Those reactions and those sort of sideline looks in on what is going on, I always really appreciate and like, because I like sort of seeing, especially in this case, Baek being very strong, being one of the strongest S ranks around, really, but still him, in comparison to Sung and the fighter in here, even him can't even close to try to manage to track what's going on or comprehend what is going on. And I do just never grow tired of any of that, no matter what power fantasy I might be talking about. I have to say, though, that of course I understand why, the TV broadcasters put this back on air and live, of course, because they don't have time to put in delay. And they sort of put their entire, let's say, faith in Sung that he wouldn't die and create a horrible panic in the population, which of course is very fitting for the show. But yes, of course, I do understand why they felt forced to resume this live broadcast, because, well, the population was probably panicking already when it was cut short very randomly, and how much the population, well, needs a king, or needs a hero in this case, to sort of calm down and have that sort of relief that, we're not all gonna die, hopefully. Now, while, as I said, this fight wasn't as epic or impactful as I was maybe hoping it to be, and I personally wasn't drawn as much into the fight as I was hoping to be, because it maybe just felt a bit too disjointed to me than I would have liked. And as with the demon monarch fight, whatnot, many of the moves, especially the latter portion of the fight, they're so fast and so quick and so much is happening so fast on screen that you can't actually track specifically what's going on, just like people slashing at each other. To me, that takes away from the fight more than adding to the fight. And because we got so much of that in the fight, at least the latter portions of the fight, that just took away some of my enjoyment of it, because I want to just see each specific move and I want to see strategy. I don't just want to see the MC versus powerful enemy and just sort of seeing them punch each other or just slash at each other and inevitably find out who's the most powerful. I want to see them MC and the ant boss in this case deploy strategy, counter strategy, and both try to outsmart each other and use the abilities they have to the utmost ability they can to try to win, and not just, go strength versus strength and just try to, out-chad each other, for lack of a better word. But nonetheless, that's how it most often goes, and that's, the general trope of power fantasy and how, they do fights in power fantasy. But that still doesn't mean I can't somewhat criticize at least that portion of it. On the positive sides though, yeah, I definitely enjoyed the impact that a lot of the battle had. For example, just the fist fight, like literal fist fight back and forth to begin, testing strength against each other. The impact of the punches and how powerful and forceful a lot of them felt. Yeah, that looked good. And many of the slow-mo scenes and more intense sort of pivotal moments of the fight, yeah, I enjoyed that. And yeah, it felt intense. But still, something about the fight just didn't draw me in as much as I expected it to. And the, let's say, stage-specific type of fight this was felt almost a bit odd to me out of what I was expecting it to be. And it just didn't really get me super invested. One reason for that was that I kind of expected, or rather I wanted, this fight to really have Sung be more on the back foot. And yes, of course, we know Sung is gonna win, obviously, but I want to see that Sung is struggling, that he's actually on the back foot, that he doesn't just win because he is stronger, but he has to actually work for it. And yes, this fight, they do try to have some moment, for example, when he gets poisoned, and you have, of course, the momentary thought, or at least they want you to have the momentary thought of, ah, shit, he's done for, right? Before inevitably, of course, not being done for. And the moment as well with the, ant arm almost piercing his eye and his brain before he then gets out of that as well. Yeah, they want to sort of manufacture these moments in this fight where Sung is supposed to make you feel like he's on the back foot. But to me, no, it doesn't feel like he was on the back foot. It just feels like you manufactured him to seem like he was on the back foot, but it didn't actually feel like he was. And that doesn't do it for me, because then it just feels manufactured. It doesn't feel like he's actually struggling. It just feels like you were forcing things to happen in the fight to make it seem like he was struggling, even though you felt and knew that, no, he isn't. You're just trying to make it seem like he is. And that also somewhat took away from the enjoyment of the fight for me, at least in some way and form. Another thing that I didn't quite appreciate was how he got out of these tough situations. Now, okay, it's fair enough that once he was poisoned, okay, it's fair enough that they reference, yes, he has this ability that he's had, from early on that nullifies negative substances, including poison. So that he was cured of poison, that's fair enough. He has that ability. That's all fair game. We're not going to complain about that. But the moment when the ant sort of strikes back at Sung and he's almost going to pierce his eye, and that very, very gorgeous shot, by the way, of his eye and everything before it gets pierced into shreds and before he dies. Just at that very moment, his ability levels up to a new type of ability. And of course, he reverses the situation and cuts off this ant's arm, etc. Or limbs in general, I suppose. To me, that's just like, really? At that exact moment, that literal exact moment, he just happened to have his ability level up. Really? I mean, really? I don't think we've actually seen exactly how or why abilities level up. I mean, I assume it was on kill, like if you used an ability to kill something, that counters towards XP to level up or something. But since he got it in the middle of a fight here, it can't be that. So it just happened extremely randomly because he used it priorly in the fight, question mark. He just randomly managed in that exact moment where he needed it, very conveniently, got it leveled up to then turn the fight back in his favor. I mean, that's the sort of extremely convenient, arguably contrived developments that I just don't like. I really don't. Like, if he would have gotten out of that in a more intelligent way, he used his abilities in some way, in a smart, intelligent, surprising way to get out of it, that would have been much more enjoyable than, oh yes, the ability I had randomly leveled up to a new ability that I just so happened to get right now in this split second before I die to then turn the fight. It's just, I don't like that, alright? Even if you guys do and you think it's cool and all, that just isn't how you structure an intense fight to me. Like, it's way too random, it's way too convenient, and it doesn't feel real. And when I say real, it doesn't feel like this is something that would happen in universe, right? And that bums me out. At least, it somewhat bums me out. That's not to throw too much shade on things, as I said, because, yeah, as a whole, beautiful boss fight, beautiful animation as a whole, great shots overall, many good moments, just not as epic as I was hoping it might turn out to be. I will take a second, though, as well, to mention that, yeah, I definitely understand that Japanese hunter, the one that was with Goto before he ran away. And him now having, like, a mental breakdown. It's like, please don't make me go back, dude. We can't beat that guy. He's insane. We gotta run away. We gotta run for our lives. Like, yeah, I get that, dude. I probably would have ran far, far away as well if I was in your shoes. Just saying. Of course, in the end, yes, Sung does win the fight. He only gets 2 levels, though, out of it, which makes me wonder, god damn, Sung is over-leveled like crazy. You only get 2 levels worth for beating a monster like that? Like, how much XP do you need to level up? That is ludicrous. Before the boss goes down, though, I do enjoy seeing, that the ant tries to rally the rest of the ads, basically, to go on Sung. But then Sung, smirking, and then bringing in his own army. And, of course, them mopping the floor with them, including Tusk literally blowing a hole in the side of this volcano. So, yeah, good job, Tusk. You overdid it there, bro. Slightly. But okay. Yeah, you took care of him. Good job. One aspect of the fight, though, that I thought was interesting, and I thought I could have done more with, was this aspect of the anxiety that the ant developed during the fight, more and more as the fight went on. The ant sort of testing Sung and fighting him, as the king of the humans, so to speak. But the ant still, from the start, being sure that he is the strongest. He is the actual king, and no matter how strong the king of the humans might be, he's not stronger than himself. But then as he finds out, through facing Sung, yeah, this human is literally insane. Like, who the hell is this guy? And you see the fear growing, and you see the moves he makes are more and more desperate. They're more and more coming from a place of fear, not strength, and coming more and more from a place of desperation, and not, let's say, power. And I do like how they sort of showcase that throughout the fight, and also, especially at the end of the fight, how desperate this guy, or this ant rather, is to get away. Literally trying to run the hell out of there. It's like, okay, this guy is literally crazy. I can't beat him. I have to just run away. I have to survive because, I can get more powerful as I absorb things. So I just have to survive, just have to get out of here. Maybe, I assume the ant thinks I can come back and fight him another time when I'm stronger. But as a whole, yes, just that fear factor that the ant goes more and more into throughout the fight, I enjoyed. Especially at the end, him just sort of crawling along the ground. It's like, I gotta get away, God, please, just after me. I gotta run. I thought that was interesting and enjoyable as a whole, though unexpected. Another point of interest, though, during the fight regarding the ant, is that he uses ice magic in the fight, which seems very similar to the ice magic that one of the Japanese S-ranks he killed used in the episode before, or the episode prior to that. And from what we understand this episode, and from prior episodes, he eats the heads of his victims, I suppose, and he absorbs their knowledge and potentially skills, right? We also see the ant, regrow his limbs and heal himself multiple times in this boss fight, which made me think, well, he ate Min's head, so does that mean he gained the ability to heal himself as well? And others, potentially? Like, is he able to gain all the skills of the people he kills also? And he also seemingly ate Goto's head, because we have that one single scene where the ant, rather, comments on, this aura, and then showing a human skull in the background, I would assume belonging to Goto. But if he gets the skills from the people he eats or absorbs, as it seems to be the case here, at least that's my impression here, then why didn't he use, for example, the skills that Goto had, that we saw him use against Sung in the sparring match? And why didn't he use potentially skills he got from other Japanese S ranks he ate in the last few episodes? Were they not useful? Did they not think of that when writing this boss fight? I don't know, but to me that just feels like a missed opportunity, because the end could have grown really, really strong, and it could have really emphasized the fact that, or mentioned the fact in the fight that he's using abilities that these other S ranks had before, and that makes him a really versatile, powerful monster. And he could have played more on that during the fight instead of just having it be more of a 1v1 face-off, testing speed, testing strength, and just making it more of a strategic battle, with him utilizing all these skills he assumingly, again I assume here, he gained from eating the heads of all these S-rank hunters from before. Again, that brings us back to my overall thoughts though on this fight, being that, yeah, it's not bad. I enjoyed the fight for what it is. Of course, a lot of gorgeous animation, as I said before, but it just felt to me like it could have done so much more with it. It could have made it so much more complex and strategic than they did. And if they did, at least to me, it would have been amazing, or at least much more amazing than it turned out to be in this case. But again, I'm not slamming it. Many good moments in it, and enjoyable for most people, I would assume. And I did, as I said, definitely enjoy, let's say, the evolving stages of the fight, and how each stage of the fight sort of grew into something different, at least the focus of how they were fighting, and in this sort of speed and intensity they were fighting, which increased each stage. Of course, when the music hits at the last stage of the fight, that's when you know it got real. Also, the music this episode, was the boss music a new motif? I think so, right? They haven't used that before, have they? I don't think so, but it was good overall. Now, one thing we did not see was the reactions from everyone watching this broadcast to Sung beating the boss, which I can only assume we will have next episode. Because, yes, I personally have to get the reactions of everyone watching this fight and how they react to Sung beating the shit out of this insanely powerful ant boss. If we don't get that in detail, I will riot. I swear to God. I do also wish at the end here, throughout the boss fight, yes, of course, they had moments where, the S ranks are like, are you sure he's a mage? Like, he's punching this guy. Like, straight up. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't really understand this guy anymore. I just wish I would have had more scenes than just watching Beck, for example, with his eyes almost popping out of his skull. I wish I would have had more scenes of the S-ranks during the fight, sort of really almost panicking or like flipping out, like, holy shit, what is going on? I would have liked to see Choi and Ma and the others have just a few seconds screen time during the fight as well. Same as Beck, sort of having these insane reactions to what in God's name is going on here. But fine enough, not gonna complain to Kingdom Come about this. Now, the last thing I need to discuss here is of course Cha, because Cha, as I mentioned way back in the beginning of this video, is on death's door, and she's about to kick the bucket. Now, Sung beats the boss, and he's called in to, of course, tend to Cha because, well, she's still dying through all of this. And Sung then thinks to himself, well, the normal healing potion didn't work. I'll try the elixir of life. And surprise, surprise, the elixir of life didn't work either. In that case, he should have tried it earlier, since he has like 5 of them left. But I guess just now he thought of it. But no, elixir of life doesn't work either because apparently it doesn't actually heal this sort of condition, which implies that the elixir of life only heals status conditions, not actual wounds or damage to the person that's given it. Now, I would have actually personally put that, on the label. Elixir of life only cures status conditions, not actual wounds. But I guess not. So he wasted one of those, and Cha is still dying, which is convenient. I suppose they had to showcase him trying to use the elixir of life, because if not, people would have been, raging. Why didn't he use that? And they had to showcase it doesn't work. But considering it's the elixir of life, this supposedly insanely powerful thing that, brought his mother out of eternal sleep, you would think it also works on bringing Cha back to reasonable health, but no. Again, apparently only status conditions. So I guess it is what it is. Okay. But then, of course, this brings into question, how is Sung going to rescue Cha? What's going to happen here in the next episode? Now, I saw some people theorizing that, well, Cha will die and Sung will raise her as a shadow soldier. Now, I'm just gonna say, no, that's never happening. Never ever happening. There is no way. Cha is like the premier waifu, and there is no way she's gonna die. It's just not happening. I refuse to even entertain that theory for a second. Now, there are multiple other potential theories which could be interesting of what Sung might do. Choi whatnot says that we have to get her out of here. We have a chopper waiting that will get her the help she needs. But of course, Sung says no, that won't be in time. She's, basically just moments away from dying. We need to fix this now. And in that moment, I thought of 3 potential theories. Number 1, okay, when Sung is, in this problem-solving mode at the end of the episode before he turns around and has this, aura eye moment when he probably realized what he had to do. What was he realizing at that moment? My first theory was, okay, he has the dragon, and the dragon is probably insanely fast, so maybe he could personally, take Cha in his arms, whatnot, get on the dragon, and fly out of there to the mainland to get help, or to wherever he needs to heal her with some S-rank or whatever healer. But I assume that since the chopper wouldn't be fast enough, I also assume that no matter how fast the dragon might be, it's not going to be fast enough to fix that. And also, because they made a cliffhanger out of this, I don't feel like using the dragon would be a reasonable payoff for that when they built it up to be this cliffhanger. My second theory was, okay, he can maybe raise Min from the dead. Now, I don't know if he can, because I don't know if there are any restrictions on how long after someone dies he can raise them from the dead, or if there are any additional conditions to raising someone. But if there's no time limit, no other restrictions, he can potentially raise Min from the dead and then use his shadow, since he was an S-rank healer, to then heal Cha back to health. Now, this, I think, is the most interesting theory and would be the most interesting narratively speaking, because if he raises Min from the dead, that could be a divisive thing. First of all, Baek, I assume, will have many reservations about this because, a close friend of his, he was killed, and Sung raised him from the dead to be his servant, his minion, basically, and using his, well, not necessarily dead body, but let's say using his spirit to heal Cha. And while would be for a good purpose, for an honorable purpose, still, that, I would imagine, would likely make Baek's and Sung's relationship very strained, because he would have many, problems with it on many levels. And also, since the live broadcast, I can only assume, is still going, if the populace sees Sung resurrect Min, in this case, to be a shadow, that could, even if he did it to save Cha, could also make a certain part of the population think like, wow, he can raise the dead just like that. He can just kill people and raise them if he wants to. He can just sort of use the shadows of dead people, not just monsters, to do what he wants. That might somewhat dent his image as like a savior hero, and maybe put the thought into at least some part of the populace's head that maybe this guy is just as much a monster, or has the potential to be as much a monster as a hero. And to me, that would be really interesting to explore, because I think both in terms of the small scale and big scale with Baek and other S-ranks and then the populace as a whole, you can have a ton of interesting narrative devices there at play to sort of explore things regarding Sung's character and put him in not only a positive light, no matter, his intentions regarding it, but considering how much they want to gas Sung up and how much they want Sung to, just be praised and just be viewed as this positive entity, I doubt they will go there either. Which brings me to my third theory, which is that if he raises the ant boss from the dead and gets the shadow of the ant boss, since the ant ate Min's head, and per my other theory, gained Min's healing abilities, if he raises the ant, could the ant then heal Cha using Min's abilities? Question mark? I have no idea. But that seems like the most reasonable that would allow him to do this, if Sung even realizes he can. But that's, a lot of speculation. Like a lot of speculation, right? Or it's none of the above. Maybe he has some other solution that will end up saving Cha. But those were the 3 that I managed to come up with while making my notes. Anyhow, if they do end up raising Min and using his shadow to heal Cha, I do hope they don't actually just pussy out from the consequences of that, especially from Baek and others, and how that would make him seem, and potential conflicts that would create. Because if they do that and just pussy away from that, I'm going to be very upset. As a whole, though, in the end, especially because this video has been going on for way too long, this was a penultimate episode and, an ultimate boss fight that was enjoyable, but in the end, I just didn't get a sort of insane, engrossing feeling that I've had in the past with this show. Maybe I'm just having an off day and that's why, but this fight wasn't up to what I really wanted it to be, and the way it was structured wasn't necessarily how I was hoping it would be. And yes, while the animation is gorgeous and the fight was really well made and a lot of good shots were there, and yeah, you can fairly say it was, pure cinema, it just didn't live up to the maybe unrealistic expectation or unrealistic hope I had for how just epic this could have been. Maybe that's just me though. Maybe you loved it. And if you did, I would love to hear about that and everything else you might have thought about my video or commentary or this episode down below in the comment section. If you stuck it out this long as well, I deeply appreciate that, spending so much time with my content. With all that being said though, do please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out my Patreon. You can check out exclusive content on there and support me just that little bit extra. With all that being said, I hope you have a good day, keep watching anime, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.